Hi, Matt.
Hi, Rebecca.
So I'm in my son's room. Do you like my background?
Very, very nice. He's a little bit all over the place. He's got Phillies.
Well,
He's got
I tried to make him a Met fan and failed. And he's a Phillies fan.
very, very nice.
I tried. I think it was 5, but nope, couldn't do it. All right, let's make a strategic plan. Let's-
Where's everyone?
I feel like we're in the wrong room. Oh, there's Mutu, so we're good.
Can you see me? Okay, good. I can't see myself. I gotta. What do I do with
You're wearing a black and white shirt.
that? Hey, how many fingers?
2.
5.
5. Yeah. What? Oh, I did hide self view. Okay. All right. Although. Okay.
Hello.
Good evening. Is Beth going to be a panelist? Or did she just want to be in the audience?
And Brian just signed in as Brian.
Oh,
and-
yeah. So Brian and Beth are as guests. Can we promote them, please?
I think so.
All right, thank you.
They've earned it.
I think so. There we go. Great. And, so we're just waiting for,
Is this a new type of Zoom?
No.
I got a whole different entry
That's a
question.
Memorial.
Yeah, you guys were in the audience. I just promoted you.
It's very strange.
Thanks, Matt. I know you sent us the correct link twice today, but I use the one on the
Mara's-
calendar.
Matt, are you promoting Mara?
Daphne found you.
oh yeah, now let's do Mara and then we can get started.
We do have a quorum.
We do.
We didn't need one.
So I think everyone, I just want to make sure. 1, 2, 3. That's right. Mara's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. Okay, we can get started. Mr. Bolden, should I read that statement?
Yeah. Do you have it handy?
I do. Welcome to this public meeting of the Princeton Board of Education. The board is an elected unpaid group of 10 citizens who set policy and make decisions on educational, financial, and personnel matters for the Princeton Public Schools on behalf of all residents. We are always pleased when members of the community attend our meetings. The board and the school district operate under applicable New Jersey laws and under regulations of the New Jersey State Board of Education. Each meeting includes an opportunity for those attending to comment on items on the published agenda or other matters of interest to them. The board reserves the right to limit the time allotted to public participation. Law limits discussion of individual personnel and confidential matters. We hope that our meetings provide useful opportunities for communication between the board and the community. Thank you for attending.
As required on the Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 1046, et sequentia, adequate notice was given for calling this meeting. It was authorized by the Board of Education and forwarded to the municipal clerk, Princeton Packet, and the Times on October 7th, 2022, and it was distributed to the schools and others on the standard distribution list. The board does reserve the right to enter into executive session during all meetings of the Board of Education. Board Policy 2230, recording devices requires that we inform those attending this virtual meeting that the proceedings are being recorded. This meeting is being live streamed, is not being live streamed. I guess I'll just take a quick roll call. Daphne Kendall,
Here.
Susan Cantor,
Here.
Brian McDonald,
Present.
Beth Barron,
Present.
Debbie Bronfeld,
Here.
Mara Franceschi.
Here.
We have a quorum. No action will be taken at this meeting. All right.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bolden. So the purpose of the meeting tonight is to discuss the strategic planning process. And so I will turn it over to Mutu and Kay, please. I'm not sure, or James, I'm not sure who's presenting.
Mutu will be presenting, but he said we're trying to make sure he's logged in here. So one moment.
Sure.
Everybody get outside today?
Yes.
Beautiful day.
Sorry, I had some technical difficulties there. Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to see you. Lauren might be joining us also, but she might be off camera. What I'd like to do this evening is to give you an update on where everything stands. And from the notes I sent out over the weekend, there are only a couple of minor steps to be completed. And we are at a point where we can begin to compile the finished document. So if I could share my screen, I'd like to, just get started. Okay, can you see the PowerPoint slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we've started compiling the story. It's partially done, and we maybe 1 or 2 short meetings away from having all the content that we need. As you know, the strategic planning process our process has 3 parts. Start with what we want for kids. Talk next about what needs to happen around instruction so we can get our kids home. And the third part is the infrastructure to support instruction. On the far right are the pieces of each one of those 3 circles. And as you can see, they mostly are green. We're in pretty good shape. There's some tweaking around language, a few alignment things to be taken care of. But by and large, all of those components are in green, are more than 90% ready. Under circle number 3, we have the strategy map, the strategies and the key actions. That's partially done. All the planning teams, the core planning team, the instruction focus team, and the alignment team have weighed in on that, the first item in circle number 3, but it's not fully consolidated. The last input was from the instruction focus team, and that was late last week. So we have a lot of material for the item that's in yellow, the strategy map, and we just want your feedback on your input, and we've been in pretty good shape. The new work for today is where is the last, we always do this last. It's sort of like the mission, vision, and core values. Most organizations do that very early in the process. We choose to do it at the end of the process so that we go through, we all have the experience of putting the plan together first, and then we can revisit our commitment to students. So the board will get a chance to begin to frame what we call the promise is. If you could make one promise to the students, what would that promise be? But you think of it as being analogous to the combination of the mission, the vision, and the core values that we want to emphasize. The 4 bullets in black will come when all the pieces are in. The performance benchmarks will probably not be done before the formal board approval, because the superintendent and her team need to take a look at the goals. They need to figure out what metrics make sense and at what level. So overall, we're in pretty good shape in terms of having raw materials to work with. I'm going to pause. Any questions at this point, please, before I go on?
Yes, Mutu, what are you looking for us to be doing tonight?
It's primarily on the promise side. I like to walk through the parts that have been done, give us a few minutes, maybe a couple minutes each time to just get your feedback on the pieces that we feel are nailed down. The new work is to get the board's input on the promise idea. That's really the primary focus of this evening. So feedback on the green, feedback on the yellow, and then weighing for the first time on the red.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, please? Or comments?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Again, if we back up here to the very beginning of the process, I guess we are a district, we have a mission, right? We have a mission statement where we haven't really talked about getting rid of our mission statement. But I'm wondering how it relates to the idea of a promise.
It's the promise has a simplicity that most mission, vision, and core values don't have, and the two can actually coexist. You bring up an excellent point. The mission, vision, core values haven't changed. They certainly can be incorporated into the next strategic plan, just carried forward. But the idea of the promise is to have something a little bit more pithy that in 15 to 20 words that captures the essence of our commitment to students. Okay. Beth, does that answer your question? Okay, thank you.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments, please? Okay, I'm going to go rather quickly through this, but just slow me down if you have any questions, please. And I will ask my colleagues to help me monitor the, raised hands. Circle number 1, these are the components, and the promise is the piece that we're going to come back to do some group work on. The portrait of the graduate, this is the latest iteration. I'll suggest we not do any fine tuning at this point, but at your leisure, if you have any feedback, please, share them with us. Since the last time we met, we've incorporated your ideas. Lauren also had some small group meetings, and she also shared this with the students in one of the student focus groups about a week and a half ago. And the students gave it a thumbs up. They were quite comfortable with what it looks like. So this is where the portrait stands now. Again, at your leisure, take a look at the language. If there are ways to make it tighter, to make it, even a lot clearer, a lot more powerful, we look forward to, we'd love to hear that kind of feedback from you. But overall, it's in pretty good shape. The goals and the corresponding measures haven't changed since the last couple meetings. Still 4 goals. Goal 1 and goal 4, we call those the bookends. So goal 1, get our students a really strong start. Goal 4, get them ready for life after high school. And in between goal 1 and goal 4 are 2 goals. One that's about their social emotional development, that's goal 2. And the second one is the academic piece, and that's goal number 3. So the 4 goals together really talk about the 2 bookends, goals 1 and goal 4, and then the 2 additional goals that are sandwiched between the 2 bookends. And for each one of those goals, there's a set of metrics, just 3 vital signs for the first 3 goals and 4 for the 4th goal.
I have a question.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. So I guess, I don't know if we discussed this last time, but goal 3C, proportionate enrollment and achievement in advanced rigorous courses. So my concern there is I don't think that's achievable. For example, we have, 15-16% of our kids have IEPs. Right now, 2.9%, I think we're enrolled in AP classes. So I just don't think that's achievable. And so I would like to reword that.
Okay.
I had the same note.
So, I think the way that your, how do I say this? Your goals and measures, your measures are actually going to be based on your baseline, and year over year, you're going to be looking for improvement. This is not a great analogy, but weight loss. If the aspirational goal is I am going to measure my BMI, it's not written necessarily that you're going to get to 100%,
Yes.
or perfection tomorrow, but based on where you are, you're going to design with disciplined implementation, actions, key action steps across every level of the organization to support getting there. So I think even at the last board meeting, one of the student representatives on the board stated that as a concern. So I think you would get the data and then you would design, like what is a SMART goal to improve that data year over year.
Yeah.
No, and I understand that. I just think the word proportionate, it's like saying, you like, to use your analogy, Dr. Kelly, to say like, I want to have a 0 BMI. It's not attainable. So it's the same thing with proportionate. Again, I use special education as a metric. It's not achievable as far as I understand it. And please correct me if I'm wrong, that we can have 16% we can have 16% of all our kids in advanced level courses. Of the kids taking AP classes, 16% are special ed. I just don't see that happening. And so I don't want to set goals. I agree it has to be a goal, but I just don't think proportionate is the way to go, because I just don't see that's achievable. So why would we set a goal that's not achievable? And again, I'm using special education as the metric.
Because generally speaking, the way that you measure disproportionality is exactly what you stated. And I know Kim is on the line, but you typically look at other demographics, not necessarily what program students are in. So you would look at the demographics of gender. You would probably look at the demographics of economically, I hate to say the word, but the economically advantaged. You would probably look at ethnicity. I've not, and Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's generally how the state looks at the disproportionality. So they would be looking at the disproportionality of students that are in a program like special ed. They would look at the disproportionality of students that are in a program like EL, for example. So I think that's how they would look at from an equity standpoint, the proportionality of student enrollment in certain classes.
Yes.
Is that correct, Kim?
Yes, it's gender, students who have 504, students with IEPs, students who are English language learners, students on free and reduced lunch, and race and ethnicity.
Yeah.
I don't know, this is helpful, Daphne. I see the confusion about the word proportionate enrollment. What we're really tracking here would be enrollment, relative enrollment in and achievement in advanced courses. What's on the left, the answer to what's on the left, the target for what's on the left side is not necessarily 100%. Okay, so it could vary, and that's where what I said early on, the next step is for us to set these performance benchmarks or excellence targets. So we could set the targets for all students, let's say it's 87%, but for specific groups of students, either by virtue of their program or race and ethnicity or gender, could have different excellence targets. So the goal is not 100% for each one of those measures. Okay, but what this calls for is that we pay attention to the relative enrollment and achievement in those courses by all the different student groups that we have.
Okay, I understand that, but again, the word proportionate means, in proportion to.
Okay.
So I would just, again, be more comfortable if we used a word like improved enrollment, which is really what we're trying to get at. So I don't think the word proportionate in that context has fidelity.
Yeah. In fact, if you look at goal 3B, that first word could replace proportionate. Growth in relative enrollment and achievement in courses. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, that's great. Other questions before we move on, please?
Well, can I just ask what in 4D, students' completion of a high school and beyond plan, is that plan something that exists or that we will be putting in place?
I don't believe you do. I don't believe we have this at PPS at this point, do we?
Kind of, sort of. I don't know how formalized it is.
Dr. Kelly or Dr. Tu, in that 4D, when do you see the development of a plan like that? Was that like when you enter high school or like where, or 10th grade, 11th grade, like, I mean, it can obviously change for different students, but like a formality of that to know where that is. And it
Goal
can
area
obviously
4
change
would be
till
for
you graduate.
secondary, 6
Well-
through 12. Goal area 4 would be appropriate for secondary students 6 through 12, and it's a matter of how the middle school admin. So what would happen after a strat plan is approved? Every leader in the organization would use the goals and align their department or school goals to the goals that are appropriate for them. So obviously, goals 2 through 4 are more appropriate for secondary, and 1 through 3 are more appropriate for elementary. So, and it's a matter upon where we're starting from with what the measures would be specifically for those schools.
Other comments about the goals and measures, please? Okay, great. So that really wraps up the first circle, which is all about students. You notice so far we haven't talked about what the adults are going to do, what programs we need. We're just getting clear about what's our promise to students when we do have that section done, what the profile of our students will look like by the time they leave us, and finally, what goals and measures we will put in place to show how much progress we're getting for all students. Circle number 2 now focuses on the most important driver of student learning and achievement, and that is how effective the instructional program is. And the model that we suggest is this notion of 4 building blocks, and the 4 building blocks address 4 criteria. We need one foundation of our educational house that's about teaching and learning. We need a second foundation that recognizes that schools can't do it alone. A third foundation that's about investing in people, and the final one about bringing it all together. So think of this as a superstructure on which we build not just the instructional program, but as you will see in circle number 3, the infrastructure to support instruction also. And those 4, the academic language that came out of the discussion around the 4 pillars is what's on the screen. Pillar A, PPS folks say that's about culturally responsive instruction that's differentiated to meet the needs of all students. Pillar B is about trust, safety, and support for all students. The third foundation, it's about professional learning and collaboration. And the fourth foundation is about efficient, effective, and equitable systems. So really think of that as the superstructure for not just for the next 5 years, but it could last for the next 10 years. What we do under each one of these superstructures could vary, but in very much the same way, you don't knock down the foundations of your home. Although you might move the walls around, you can drop ceilings, but you keep the foundations really strong. That's the approach that we urge in here. So these 4 pillars then frame what needs to happen around instruction. So our teaching practices are premised on those 4 foundations, but they define what we expect our teachers to master over time around pillar A, which is around instruction, pillar B around trust, safety, and support, pillar C around continuous learning, and pillar D around effective systems. The same foundation applies for leadership practices, right? So everyone in the organization has a role to play in keeping the foundations of the house strong, but what they do is what's functionally appropriate for their role in the organization. And the same thing at the district level. So that's really pillar number 2. We've defined the foundations and we've defined the practices that will be most important for effective instruction. Then the last part is pillar 3. What's the infrastructure we need to put in place to support instruction? And again, since we're all living under the same house, so to speak, the organization of the infrastructure is still based on the 4 pillars. But what we do on each one of them from the infrastructure point will be different from what we do on our instruction. And this is why the teams have settled. we call it strategic priorities. If we could get really, really good at 3 things that matter most relative to teaching and learning, what would those 3 things be? That's what the 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 3 o'clock about. So one way of thinking about this is that if you could get really top-notch about understanding each student's strengths and needs, and provide multiple personalized pathways and culturally relevant teaching, we'll really be at the top of our game when it comes to teaching and learning. On pillar B, these are the 3 things: safe, respective, and kind place, meaningful communication and transparency, effective ecosystems, and so on. So these 12 priorities then are the ways we make manifest the intent behind the 4 pillars. Now, the specific strategies that come next, it's work yet to be done. So each one of those pillars and the priorities will have some universal key actions. Think of this as universal strategies. And they will have some targeted strategies also. So universal ones will be the ones that apply to all students. And the targeted ones will be the ones that apply to student groups or individual students who need additional support or scaffolding in order to meet the goals we have set for them. So we have a lot of input for this section. Again, the last one was gathered just on the 12th of October from the instruction focus team, or the 11th rather. So we'll be working on consolidating those in. So there'll be 1 page like this for pillar A. Then for pillar B, the same notion. What are the universal key actions related to trust, safety, and support? What are the targeted key actions related to trust, safety, and support? Same thing for pillar C and for pillar D. But again, we have enough material. We just have to finish processing them. So that's the flow of the whole plan. Before we go on to talk about getting your ideas around the promise, any questions or comments, please, about?
Oh, excuse me. So Mutu, Susan has a question. I just want to say, and I didn't say this earlier, public comment will be at 7:15. So go ahead, Susan.
It was a very brief question. Is this the same concept around those goals that you've worked with the instructional team on, that there'll be like 3 or 4 strategies for each, that each are measurable, so it's not overwhelming? Or how
Yes.
how does that?
Yeah, that's what we always urge. We don't always win the battle, because at the end of the day, the client is always right. But that's what we're going to be urging. In fact, if I could just show you the work that's been, I'm going to share my screen. So,
and that started with the instructional team to develop?
Yeah, it's the instruction team was the last one that weighed in on it. And the on the universal and targeted strategies, the core planning team weighed in late September. So we have their input for each goal. We have the instruction focus team for goal number 1, and then we have the alignment team for goal number 1 also. Then we go to goal number 2, and each one of those 3 teams weighed in again. Again, the core planning team has weighed in, instruction focus team, and so on. This is the sausage making part of the exercise. You know,
yeah, I wanted the recipe. Just wanted to hear what the recipe was.
Actually, it's just get quiet, put on sweatpants, some loose clothing, have a cup of tea or water, and meditate on it. And so it's that's really the recipe. You know, how do we take all these diverse points of view?
Diverse feedback from all different stakeholders. And
exactly.
Putting it together. And what bubbles up, obviously, with our top administrative team having a lot of input, like what are the key strategies?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why we always transparent about the raw material we start with, because some of the things that we see or we infer from all this input might not be the things that the client considers most important. So this is what we're going to be working with, or working from. It's not uncommon for us to, supplement something if we feel it's missing. When we do that, we usually highlight it in red or some other color to call your attention to it, that this is what we think you ought to be doing even though you didn't say it all. We might, if we restate something and really change the intent of it, we'll call that out too, so you get a chance to, let us know whether you agree with us or not. So that's this is really the heavy lift that remains in the process.
Right,
But we
because
have a lot of
this is where the measurables go around and the strategies to support these goals.
Correct. Okay. Other questions, please, before we get
Yeah.
back to the
I just had a quick question, and this is more like a thread question of something I don't quite see. And that's where you have in your second category, it says schools can't do it alone. And then at the higher level, you kind of looked like there were some ideas about this kind of external connection to the schools, and the community connection to the schools. But then I wonder, when you get down into pillar B and you start talking about the specific strategies, we really are looking internally. And I just wonder where the external or the community-based or the civic-based sense of safety or belonging or connection, how that threads through. When you say schools can't do it alone, it presumes that you're actually looking beyond the schools. And I just wonder how that follows through, because it doesn't seem to be there in the more specifics. So I just raised that for you to think about.
That's a perfect example of an area where we might come back and say, you guys are missing this one, and we are recommending that you do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
So what I've shown you so far is what came from PPS folks. But again, it's not uncommon for us to find holes in the recommendations and then to suggest that you address them.
Yeah, it just seems like a dissonance between the high level schools can't do it alone and then what actually it flowed down into. So I'm just raise that to you. Thanks.
Thank you. Other questions, please? Great. It's almost there, almost. All right. So let's get back to the new work, the remaining piece. Let me go back to the PowerPoint. Do you see the PowerPoint, please? Okay.
We don't see anything now.
Not now. Move to
Yeah, not anymore. I took it off. Okay. So, let's share my screen. How about now? Do you see sample promise statements?
Yes.
Yes. The intent behind this, again, it's really when it really works, you'll find it's a mix of mission, vision, and values. And one of the examples that I like to use is this one from Highline Public Schools. We worked with them more than 10 years ago. And it's a very simple statement. Every student in Highline Public Schools is known by name, strength, and need, and graduates ready for college, career, and citizenship. In that short statement, is implicit in this statement is their mission. Also implicit in it could be vision, and to some extent, their values also. So that's the idea. If you were to go to Highline Public Schools, and this is not an exaggeration, and ask anyone in that district, any adult, what the promise is, they can tell you. So that's how deeply embedded it is in the fabric. So, the bus driver, the custodian, the teachers, everyone knew what the Highline promise is. So it's sort of like an inductive exercise. You kind of have to get into a different kind of space, and it might take a few iterations to get there. So that's one example. This is Vashon Island, just off a little away from Seattle area, and same sort of idea as Highline. In fact, you find lots of districts using the Highline model or variations of it. And this one is a district in Sacramento, California area, Washington, USD. They actually had, for the past 10 years before we came in to do that new strategic plan, equity, excellence and empowerment were themes for them long before this new superintendent took over. So they carried that over. And I think it was Beth that ask about the mission, the current mission, vision, core values. If there are sentiments in the current document that we don't want to lose, it's perfectly fine to carry it over. We're just urging us to get it down to 15, 20 words. That's really very, very powerful and very emotionally grabbing. So this is their piece. This is a school district in New York. In New York State, it's on Long Island, Uniondale, different. And this is another Washington State client of ours, Sumner Bunny Lake. This is theirs. The one that I didn't send you on, I didn't think about it until later on, is another district. It's one of my personal favorites. And it's Federal Way. And this is actually the cover we designed for their strategic plan. Each scholar, a voice, a dream, a bright future. So that's another example of a promise statement. Okay. So with all that as a stage setting, I wonder if you have any questions first about where we're headed. And then we're going to suggest that we have a Google Doc template. We suggest that we just get a little bit, quiet and use the Google Doc to express whatever you would like us to consider. It doesn't have to be fully constructed. It could be just ideas or ideals you want to recommend to your colleagues. But before we do that, any questions or comments about where we're headed, please?
Yeah, I had a comment or question. Do a lot of these districts also have mission statements? Because I think I'm like Beth. We talk so much about our mission statement, and I guess I'm trying to parse which one would you talk about first here.
Yeah.
So
which one would you talk about first?
Like would you talk about a promise or would you talk about a mission statement?
Yeah, I'm asking you the same question.
Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, so do those schools have mission statements?
Many of them don't any longer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and those that do, it could be part of their literature, like the Shaker Heights in Ohio. They have some really powerful mission statements. Charlotte Mecklenburg also have a set of core beliefs. So the two coexist. So we could easily do that also. Brian. You muted.
Not to push too hard on this but with Beth and Debbie, that mission statement came about through a very lengthy process 5 or 6 years ago that involved community leaders, school leaders, and it's 26 words long. It's not one that goes on, and one could just put our promise instead of our mission, and you would have the mission and the promise would be the same.
Yeah.
And I just want to wonder with my colleagues how much we want to adhere to that mission statement, because I think a mission statement and a promise statement, while they can coexist, it's getting awfully busy.
That's correct.
And if we like our mission statement, I wonder whether we might turn it into our promise.
It's a great idea. Yeah, you're getting thumbs up and head shaking.
Well, can I just add on to that? So everybody always, for the past whatever years, everybody needed a mission statement. That was kind of the new big buzzword. So has it moved to a promise statement? Is that kind of the new thing? Corporations have missions and everybody was throwing around their mission statement.
Yeah. Well, we actually evolved towards this about 2016. And the idea came from the student voice focus group sessions we're having. We'll ask the students that if the adults could make you one guarantee or one promise, what would you want that to be? Okay. And that was really what compelled us to I mean, we literally crossed out mission, vision, core values, and we substituted. But what's important is that your mission, vision, core values are really like a mix of the existential goal of the organization, but also it has heart or spirit in it also. If what you have captures those two ideas, I wouldn't change. I'll just go with what you've got, right now. If you want to call it by a different name, that's fine. But if it captures the existential reason for the district's existence, and then also this notion of the heart, the spirit, the larger intents, then I'll keep it. I'll suggest you keep it. Daphne, sometimes your head goes up and down, sometimes it goes sideways. So I'm not sure. I
think when it goes sideways, I'm thinking, and
okay, all right.
up and so I'm thinking. But
Okay.
I think Beth is next.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting idea that Brian raised about taking that, our mission statement. I mean, really, I like the idea, Mutu, that you've introduced to us is what are we promising our students? It's much more student focused to think about what are we really putting ourselves on the line to the kids for? Mission statements are very corporate and kind of up there in the air and don't necessarily the kids. It seems separate from the children, but a promise to the children is really powerful. And if we were able to promise the children something about our mission statement, that would be powerful. But it's tough. It's tough. I mean, it's really aspirational in my view. After all these years, we are very aspirational on our mission, and it's very difficult to reach it. So I feel even more kind of, if I say to my child, I promise you this, I really mean it. So
Yeah.
I think we need to think about that.
Susan?
Yeah, I was kind of musing. I kind of also would want to look at our mission statement compared to, either the 16 goals or like is the mission statement incorporating what has been developed through our current mission statement, or is there something lacking in this mission statement versus what the strategic plan has developed, if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like parts of it I see very clearly, but I just want to make sure there's not something that we've identified in the strategic plan that we don't see in this mission statement. Because I do, when we turn it into either a promise or because I think we all kind of feel like this should be the basis of any promise. But are we over promising, as Beth said? And is the mission statement missing something from our strategic plan that's risen up to this?
Mm-hmm.
I did put the mission statement in the chat for the host and panelist.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was helpful.
Yeah.
Because, going back, I have to go back now and look at a couple of slides that Mutu showed us. But,
Right.
is there something there that either needs to be added to our mission statement or that's not, or is there something there that's not captured? It looks like most of the things are captured, but is it missing anything?
Right. So from Brian's and Beth's suggestion, the commitment is to prepare all students to lead lives of joy and purpose as knowledgeable, creative, and compassionate citizens of a global society. So I would say, in my former district, we did something similar. It wasn't the mission, it was the vision statement, but that became our promise, that we would create positive learning environments that were inclusive. Oh my gosh, did I forget it? That were inclusive, equitable, and focus on the whole child. So every leader, every communication, like you would just say that statement. And it got to the point where every educator, every staff member would be able to say it. So I
Yeah. What's on the screen is a really strong statement. You know,
Mhm.
actually, I mean, the ideas and the ideals in there are actually, you know, quite commendable. So we might rework them a little bit. Imagine it being, as you know, Susan or Beth suggested, it's something I was saying to a child. You know, so in what ways can we keep the, I mean, the notion of joy and purpose, that's powerful. Yeah, there's some really strong sentiments here.
Yeah. Sorry.
Beth, did you have another question?
Just wanted to note that the models that you showed us, which were kind of, I like them, also seems to me our mission kind of goes into a very broad place where we talk about citizens of a global society. So we're kind of commenting on society. And I kind of liked some of the models that you had where they talk about graduates ready for college, career, and citizenship. So, for example, it brings it back to a child to say, we're going to give you these skills for what's next. And it's a little bit more concrete than our mission statement, which is very broad. And I wonder sometimes when we use our mission statement, we can kind of glaze over when we say citizens of a global society. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's almost too high level. I don't know. I love it, but I wonder whether if people are going to be saying this and making it their mantra, whether you have it somehow think about whether it really connects to our job as a school, getting them ready for the next step. That's all.
So you could just trim off of a global society if that's the part that's causes one to glaze over. I would note that our mission statement is clearly aspirational, and we should always be aspiring to reach that. When I look at what the other districts have done in their promise, I would also characterize most of them as aspirational. They may be a little simpler in their phrasing, but looking at the Highline one, our promise, every student in Highline Public Schools is known by name, strength, and need, and graduates ready for college, career, and citizenship. Do they deliver that in 100% of the cases? Probably not.
Probably not. At least not yet.
Right. So I'm not troubled as much by some level of being aspirational, but I do hear what Beth has to say about our statement. So Muti, what is the next as our leader, our guide, our Yoda? How do we move forward from here?
I'm wondering if we can maybe not worry about crafting the ultimate statement today, but to hear from each one of you, what are some of the ideas and ideals that you would like in this notion of a promise? And some of them could be what we have in the current mission statement. So we can take those ideas and ideals from you, and then we can, we often come back with 2 or 3, reworks, and then we share that with you, and then we go back and forth until, you feel it speaks to you. So that's what I would suggest, Brian. Okay. You want to try it out? Okay, we have a Google Doc, which is in the, Kate, can you put the link in the chat, please? And just grab any role in the document. It'll be on the 2nd page or 3rd page. And let's take, maybe 5-7 quiet minutes to just put down what's on your mind around mission, around this promise notion. Again, it could be full, complete sentences or just words or phrases. Okay. Just let us know if you can access that Google document. Okay.
Do you have to sign into the doc or can you just start writing?
You can, we want a composite because we'd like to actually have all of you look at what your colleagues have said before we wrap up today.
Okay.
So if you could use the Google Doc, that'd be preferable. Let's take a couple more minutes. About 10 more seconds, please. Okay. Who wants to make a case for their suggestions, or just talk to us about where you're coming from and where you're headed? Anyone, please.
I'll start. I stuck with our mission statement and just trimmed off the last
global
few words, of a global society, because that strikes me as very aspirational, and society is so broad when we think of the many communities within the society, whether it's local or regional. But I wanted, for me personally, to honor the work that's been done in the past. And, by that, I don't just mean in creating, a past plan and its mission, but in, trying as an administration, staff, and board to work in that direction. And while we've come up short in many ways, we've done some really good work. And Dr. Kelly is in the process and working with Dr. Tu and others of coming up with paths that would lead us closer to that aspirational promise.
Great. Thank you.
This is Debbie. I think what I wanted was something more, I guess, more concrete now. So I wrote, our promise is for every student to feel known and welcomed, because I think I want something current, and to lead lives of joy for a better citizen for tomorrow. That I kind of just put something in, but I do love the joy. I really love the joy, but I also felt I wanted something while you're here now, that you are known, you're welcome, you're part of what we are. So I was looking for a little like current and then future.
Thank you, Debbie.
I'll go next. I like the current mission statement. I think the part of the global society, I think it's important because we're kind of in a bubble here in Princeton. And I think it's important for students to know that we're part of a global society, and our curriculum, tries to teach that. We have, 8 foreign languages. We have exchange programs. Kids have opportunities to see other parts of the world. And I like creative. Not everyone's creative. So I liked inquisitive, because I think curiosity is a sign of intelligence. And I think always asking questions is important for kids.
Daphne, did you intentionally choose inquisitive about curious?
Yes.
Okay.
I did.
Because you mentioned that adjective also.
Curious. I mean, I don't know. I have to look them up. I don't know if they're interchangeable, but I just think, it's important to understand how you got somewhere, why, and understand, other perspectives as well. So that's all part of it.
Okay, you get everyone?
I'll just say I like what Daphne said. I think about our day right now, where our children, there's a lot of things going on right now that people really need to be inquisitive. It's important for them to be critical thinkers, right? So I can see that might be a good timely switch of a word, perhaps, creative or inquisitive. And I also, I like our mission. But also, so I wrote it, I just tightened it a little bit. And I'm just also thinking about what you said, that we want to have something that everyone can say. So from our bus drivers to our lunch aides, to our teachers, to our students, to everybody in the school should be able to have this roll off their tongue. So we need to think about that, whether it sounds that way or feels that way. And I'm not sure where I come out yet on that. I do think like the Highline one is a bit simpler in language. But I do love our mission statement, so I'm gonna go with what I put down. But I do like Daphne's idea about inquisitive.
I'm sorry, Jay, I will pipe in. I had to run out to grab a child. I concur with my colleague. I love the word joy, and I do like our mission statement if we can find a way to tighten it up. I like all the different versions that have been put up here. It's hard to choose, but I concur with my colleague.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, I might like the change from creative to curious or inquisitive too. So I think, but I do like basing it on our mission statement. I think that our mission statement has been something driving our district that we haven't worked close enough to get to where we want to be. So I think having it as a promise or closer to a promise, I think with deliverable, measurable strategies and measurables, I think a lot is encapsulated by that mission statement. I've never felt like it wasn't a good aspirational mission statement whenever it's been read before every meeting.
That's great. Yeah, it's got some really powerful ideas. As I'm looking at it again now, the question that comes up for me is the relative order of those 3 adjectives. And I'm looking at Brian's, which is similar to all the others also. Knowledgeable, creative, compassionate, and then joy and purpose, which I think are just powerful ideas. And I'm wondering if maybe it'd be more powerful to reverse when those are mentioned in the mission statement. That we're about nurturing knowledgeable, creative, and compassionate, students, citizens. And we're doing that so that we can get them ready to lead lives of joy and purpose.
I like that because it brings like the role of a school system, to provide knowledge. It brings it more forward. So I would be okay with that change.
And then we get rid of our mission statement because I think having both is too much. It's too much, especially if they're the same.
Yeah. No, I think you will have to settle on. We'll recommend you settle on one.
Okay.
You're right.
Okay.
It's similar. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I think one would be better. And I do feel like mission statements were a big thing. And you're right, every corporation, they're kind of more the corporate, where the promise is, you're coming to us, pre-K to 12, and we promise to be
More
there. for you
personal.
also.
I think it's more personal for the student.
Yeah, personal, that's the word.
So you were thinking something like to nurture knowledgeable. We could say something like nurturing the knowledge and creatable, curious and compassionate students who then are joyful and purposeful.
Yeah. If we do that, we get them knowledgeable, curious, inquisitive, compassionate, and so on. There's nothing more fantastic than living a life of joy and purpose. So it's almost like the ultimate goal. They're happy and they have things that really matter to them and those around them. So my thinking again, this is all fairly, I really haven't looked at it this seriously before, but it just seems to me that it'd be much more personal to the students. If the adjectives come first, those are the things we want to get them to be able to do well. And we want them to be knowledgeable, creative, inquisitive, compassionate, so that when they leave us, they're really ready to rock and roll, and they're rocking and rolling by living lives of joy and purpose. You actually made this easy because all of you, each one of you is comfortable with the mission statement. I don't think we need to go any further unless somebody wants to make a really passionate case for 1 of 2, 3, 5. as the stem would build around. Anybody wants to make a case for one of these?
Not to make a case for one of them, Mutu, but to Beth's point earlier, I think it's easier for the statement to roll off the staff tongue when it makes logical sense. So I think the way that you just, it's the same words, but you've kind of changed it around. I think that would definitely catch on more so from the rolling off of your tongue standpoint. But either way, I think trying to narrow down the words would help as well.
Okay, I think we have enough, and certainly enough to work from, and you actually make this a lot easier from a writing standpoint. I can see a couple of iterations that we can get back to you fairly quickly and get your feedback long before the next meeting. We're in pretty good shape, so thank you very much. You made this easy. Yeah.
Anytime.
Thank you very much. We can actually, unless there are any parts of the overview plan that I presented that you want to talk about, we can actually wrap things up, 23 minutes ahead of schedule closing time.
Okay, I just have to do public comment.
Okay.
One thing, Mutu, if we have some minor comments on what you showed us earlier, should we send them to Lauren? Who do you want us to direct?
Yes, send them to both of us.
Okay.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Bolden.
Rita?
With regard to public comment, if we could, you just please state your street address and the town that you live in, and if you could please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Please be respectful and try not to use people's names. Thank you.
Can we close the green?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Sorry, thanks.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Rita Rafalowski. So I have a few comments. I also have a few questions. I was just wondering, shouldn't our mission and goals be built upon our board priorities, like our school board priorities? And I'm not sure what are our board priorities. So I took a look at other school districts, and that's how typically they've created their mission statement first by setting the board priorities. And I also think it's kind of interesting that we have goals and we're talking about measurements, but we don't have a mission statement. That seems kind of backwards to me. So that's an observation. And I would love to see words like empowering students, resiliency, unity. I would love to see those kinds of words. I feel like, especially, after COVID, I think resiliency and unity are really powerful words. And empowering students, I feel like, again, after COVID in particular, I think that a lot of people feel helpless, and I think we need to help sort of, build them back up. So I'd love to see those kinds of words in there. I still feel like this plan, from what I've seen, just in general, it doesn't really read to me like a Princeton plan. Like it could be for any plan, like it could be sort of for any district. And that to me is a little bit disturbing. I'd like to see that changed. And then going back to the proportionality, and this is where I have a few questions. So I'm just wondering, what if there are too many of certain students in a class? How would we, like, what would happen? And who will basically be enforcing that? So, like, for example, if there is, I don't know, some kind of advanced math class, and we end up having, more boys in that class, or we end up having more Asians in that class, do we say, okay, we have 20 spots and there are 11 Asians who signed up for that class? That means that that's too many? Like that, how would we handle that? That to me is a little bit disturbing. anyway, who are we to say that someone should be in an AP class just because of their race or socioeconomic background? Like ultimately, isn't it, kind of what they want to do, like what the kids are aspiring to be? Some will be aspiring to be engineers, some will be aspiring to be artists, some will be aspiring to be, whatever, because there's so many jobs, and jobs even that we haven't even come up with. So those are some of the things I wanted to share. And because at the end of the day, if we're gonna enforce this, there needs to be somebody who is doing the enforcing and being accountable for it. That's a really awkward position to be in.
Okay, thank you. And this is in a Q&A, but I just want to say, I don't know what part of the conversation you came in as, but that goal relates to disproportionality and underrepresentation of key groups in higher level classes. It doesn't make a good talking point, but no one's looking to take anything away from anyone or to restrict participation. Thank you. Do we have anyone else, Mr. Bolden?
Linda Dodd.
Yes, thanks. I also wanted to go back to goal number 3 about opportunity and achievement for all, and look at C. I appreciate what Rita is saying. I think that's the kind of unexpert understanding of that term in this context. People start fearing so-called racial balancing, which is not what any civil rights attorney would look for. The Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights, refers to disproportionality often when it's assessing discipline, when it's looking at special education. So getting rid of it, I think, would be a problem. If you look at goal number 2, B says reduction in disproportionality for discipline. That's, I think, where it should be used in goal number 3. Otherwise, you don't have really anything about closing the opportunity gap. So my suggestion is reduce disproportionality, limiting enrollment. So there's no cap on enrollment for groups that are already high achieving. It's reduce disproportionality, limiting enrollment and achievement in advanced rigorous academic courses and extracurricular programs to enable all students to reach their full potential. If you don't have language referring to disproportionality in goal 3, there's no way that there are going to be measures that are looking at closing the opportunity gap and the way that it's commonly measured. So I strongly encourage you to consider reductions in disproportionality, limiting enrollment, and then the measures and data can be collected to make sure that we're opening up rigorous courses to more students and not taking seats away from the students who already are high achieving students at Princeton. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Anyone else, Mr. Bolden?
There do not appear to be any other questions at this point.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So back to you, Mutu. Do you have anything else?
No, we're good.
Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn? Okay, all in favor? Are we good, Mr. Bolden?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good night, everyone. Thank you, Mutu and Kay
you very
and
much.
Lauren.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All
Bye.
right, thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a great meeting.
Thank you.